Hello everyone, I'm Ivy, and in this film, I would like to share with you guys about my journey as a novice qualitative researcher. And yes, in the beginning of the course, I'm really extremely a novice in the field of qualitative research because in the past, the paper or the method that I've worked on mostly falls on the quantitative research. So throughout this semester, and I've learned a lot, and I kind of understand what the qualitative look, research look like. And through this film, I want to talk about the difficulty that I encountered from the experience of doing the mini task in the class, and try to reflect on the lesson that I've learned from those processes. So let's start.
I still remember that when I work on a mini task of I stayed in the site and doing the observation and jot down everything that I saw from surrounding, and the process seems to be free, but actually I started to feel unsafe and felt like there's no criteria or a very clear objective when I'm doing the observation. So it was difficult to distinguish between what is significant because everything seems to be important. So what can I rely on? No direction, no assumption. What can I rely on? But it is an experience that let me start to think about the role of researcher in the qualitative research. Comparing to quantitative research, the role of the researcher seems to be more important and vital in the qualitative research process because as we know, qualitative research will be highly involved in the research process, so we should be more reflective and we may need to keep asking why to ourselves in the process of data collection. This can help us to be more conscious of what we are doing, and based on those reflexivities, then we can evaluate what may be a more suitable way to collect the data or even making adjustment of the research focus for a better development of our research. And this is what I learned from the experience of doing the mini task of interviewing and observation. And I want to share with you guys my personal experience of doing the interview. I interviewed my roommate, and she's a graduate student who is about to finish her MA thesis. And I want to see how does she view the process of working on her MA thesis, and what does she think about the role of her advisor to her throughout the research process. I come up with some interview question and conduct the interview with her. But after I finished the interview, I found that from her response, the account which is about the influence of her advisor is actually very limited. She tends to elaborate more on other aspect of the influence or other aspect of the factor. Then I realized that as a qualitative researcher, different kind of data might be collected as the study goes on, and the way that the study is conducted might be changed during the process of the research, and the research design may emerge and keep adjusting throughout the research process. So I think being patient and flexible is very important for the qualitative researcher, especially when the research is in the initial stage, because the process of conducting qualitative research does not go in a linear way. We learn from the data and start from what we have learned. And besides, I have also been conscious of my role as a qualitative researcher in making an interpretive decision. And through the many tasks of coding and finding themes from the interview transcript, I found that what we see from the same text was various to different researchers. So I start to realize that what textbooks have mentioned, researcher is one of the instruments throughout the research. So if we view ourselves as an instrument, then we need to be reflective and never stop questioning to ourselves about the strategy that we use in the research process, any decision, and the possible assumption or bias that we may have in interpretation. And this may be a way to ensure the credibility and make the result be more persuasive to our readers. I think that the process of conducting the qualitative research to me is very similar to the experience of reading a poetry. Why did I say that? Because when we are reading the poetry, it is hard for us to get the meaning of the poetry by only reading it for one time, right? And so we have to carefully decode the meaning of each word and mix association of the words and the hidden meaning from the text. And when I'm reading the poetry, maybe it requires the imagination, and we need to kind of making association of the text and the experience. So it is very similar to the process of conducting qualitative research. A researcher have to explore the perception from people's accounts and observe and try to figure out the hidden meaning of those verbal or non-verbal language. The main responsibility of qualitative researcher is to capture the inside meaning of individual and explore the possibility of certain phenomena. I think it's very similar to the process of reading a poem. It requires a keen eyes and sensitive mind, and then we see the essence from the raw text by examining the data over and over.